The only people who I knew who had money when I was young growing up were drug dealers. And I always wanted to be a millionaire. So I went that path. I ended up dropping out of school, went full-time in the streets.
Let's be honest, most marketers today could learn a thing or two from a drug dealer.
Meet Marquel Russell,
also known as the Client Attraction King,
who will help you build a business that can run without you.
There's a lot of people teaching how to make money. Start this business, start this business, start this business. And not really teaching how to actually build a business. How do you actually build an asset that can actually run without you? Because if it can't run without you, it's really not a business. It's really just a job. It might be a high-paying job. Think about it, somebody will quit their job because they want more freedom. They're working more in the business than they worked on the job. They're making less in the business than they made on the job. And they're more stressed in the business than they were on the job. And it doesn't make sense.
Welcome to another episode of Unlock Your Potential. This is Jeff Lerner, your host. So excited to be with you, having amazing conversations with amazing human beings, as we do every week here on this show. Today, we are joined by Marquel Russell. I'm pausing because I want to refer to him by his proper moniker, the good doctor, Marquel Russell. I promised him I'd give him a hard time about his doctor title. Anyway, Marquel is an expert on scaling service businesses. He is the CEO of Client Attraction University. He's helped his clients, again, who are service business owners, generate over $1 billion in revenue. He's a keynote speaker. He is someone who has thought about acquiring clients and scaling businesses to a scientific level of precision and method, way beyond certainly most of us. And I'm excited to pick his brain for about the next 45 minutes. Dr. Marquel, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here, man. Like I told you before, I'm a fan. I've watched your work. So I'm excited. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm not going to lie. It's still kind of weird and trippy when people are like, oh, I've seen your work. I'm like, I forget that, like, sometimes you forget that the things we do have like a life of their own out there in the world, and there's people interacting with us even when we're not present.
Yeah.
It trips me out,
The internet makes the world very small.
Yeah, totally. Which inversely makes us much bigger.
Right, which is
depending how you look at it.
It's pretty trippy as well. Like I'm still not used to people walking up to me while I'm out and like, hey man, can I get a picture with you? Like it's very weird.
It is weird. And you say something like that, and I feel like sometimes people are like, oh yeah, whatever. But like, it's super weird. People randomly recognize you at the airport. Yeah. I took my family to Maui, and there were like 3 guys walking in the Lahaina. This was before the fire, the Lahaina district. And they're like, hey, aren't you that guy from YouTube? You're the guy that always interrupts the video I'm trying to watch. I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the first thing that jumps out at me is you seem fairly young. Can I ask, do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Yeah, I actually just turned 40 last week, 2 weeks ago, a couple weeks ago.
Okay, well, you're rocking 40. Let me just say that for the record. I wouldn't have pegged you at 40. I thought you were even younger than that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Although at 45, I want to believe that 40 is still extremely young.
Now, 40 is very young, especially in context. I've had to learn and get that perspective, because at me, I was like, man, I'm about to be 40. Oh my God. But then it's really just getting warmed up, actually.
I think 40 is like, they always say, oh, 40 is the new 30. I'm going to up the ante, and I'm going to say 40 is the new 25. I agree
100%.
It's like the age, especially for men, like the male brain stops, I don't want to say growing is the word, but like stops maturing, I think, around the mid-20s. Like, I think the last ability we develop is the ability to forecast, really effectively forecast consequences, which is why young men do such stupid things.
Yep.
I don't personally, they say that happens at 25. I don't feel like it really happened for me until about 40. Like, I feel like I just started to really see the world effectively about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe. I'm curious, what's happened for you perspective-wise in the last 10 years that would potentially support what I'm saying, that as men, like 40 is actually the starting point of greatness?
I agree, 100%. So things that happen for me is, number one is got married right? So I got married actually 13 years ago this year. Kids, right? So I have older kids. So I had my first son when I was 19, right? And then my younger kids, my youngest is 5. He just turned 5. And I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. And just the way I parent my younger kids now compared to my older kids. So just that's changed. And then also just my values. I think my values have, I know my values have changed because when I first got into this entrepreneurial world, it was just grind, hustle, make more money, hit bigger records. All right, we hit that revenue goal. Let's hit another revenue goal. Let's just go bigger every time. And then more recently, I guess over the past couple years or so, it's more so like, really getting in alignment with what I want. Do I want to continue to chase? What is the goal? What are the things that really fulfill me? And what are the things that I really value, even outside of money, business, and all that fun stuff. So just really more in alignment and just operating differently about how I make decisions. So I think those are a few things that totally transform 100%.
You know, you said a big one, values. And I think as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, that's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because physically, I was stronger 10 years ago. In some ways, mentally, I think I was quicker 10 years ago. But it's that sort of like more aggressive, like youthful energy that's a little bit like unbottled lightning. Like it's not necessarily that directed. But if as I was listening, I was like, that really is what's changed for me in the last 10 years is its values.
Yeah.
I am so much clearer now on who I am, who I'm striving to be, what matters most. And I'm curious if this has happened for you, that around 40, it was 39 for me, actually. And by the way, Entra, the company that is pretty much what I'm known for in the world. I started when I was 39 years old, or I started what grew into that when I was 39 years old. And it all happened around the same time. It was when I finally got good at saying no to things that didn't align with my values.
Mm.
I'm wondering if that's something that's emerged for you in the last 5-10 years, is an improved ability to say no to things that don't align.
100%. I mean, it's a big deal because again, so for me, it was because me, especially being a first-time builder of growing companies and so forth, and not really having any real solid models or other than what you see on the internet, and then you start realizing a lot of stuff you see on the internet isn't even real. So, and then when I started, and I didn't realize that until I started being able to get into different rooms and privy to different conversations, and then I started saying that. Interesting. Why is this my revenue goal, right? Am I just saying this is my revenue goal because other people are saying this is what they're making and these are their goals? And it's like, why do I actually want to make that? And then I started thinking that scale was actually bigger, faster, more, when scale is simply just duplication and multiplication, right? And then that's when I trained, because at first we was focused on Client Attraction University, client acquisition. And then as we started growing companies, we started realizing that client acquisition is just a small part of actually growing the company and scaling the company. So that's when we had to start Strategic Scale Institute, which is solely focused on helping businesses scale like teams, systems, operations, finance, all the stuff that really isn't as sexy in the business world. But it's the stuff that really moves the needle. So me just kind of having that perspective and seeing these things and saying like, okay, top line revenue is actually a vanity metric. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have profit and things of that nature, I mean, who cares like how much money you bring in top line if you can't even afford to pay yourself a salary? So I think all that stuff came on the back end of making lots of money, doing a lot of different things. And I was like, okay, wow, I've done this, and the third, but I think I've done it the wrong way. Well, not the wrong way because you learn so many lessons in it, but it was like, okay, here's what it really is, and here's what I really want, and here's what I really need to afford the life that I want. In the quality of life, and then here's what the business has to do to help create that. So now the business, so to speak, becomes a vehicle to create this versus me building my whole life around this business thing that can kind of just swallow you whole if you're not careful. And all the things that matter, family, health, all those things will go to the wayside if you're not super intentional about it.
So two thoughts as you were sharing. You were talking about, you kind of hit a point where you're like, man, I did a lot of work. And I realize now that maybe I did some things out of sequence, or, I don't remember exactly how you said it, but it was like right results, wrong order, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably were like kicking yourself, because it's not like you figured that out after like a week, like, oh, I did that thing on Tuesday and I should have waited to do it on Thursday. No, this took place over years.
For sure.
Billions of calories expended, right?
100%.
And so, as you were saying, I was like, man, it's just a truth of life that the lessons we learn that give us the most value to share always seem to include a serious dose of kicking ourselves.
100%.
Of like there's no like profound lesson that increases our value of what we have to offer to the world that comes without a side dose of pain and frustration and temptation for regret if we don't focus on the value of the lesson and instead we fixate on the time we spent learning it.
Yeah.
So that's good. So for the audience, if you're in the middle of something that sucks, just know it probably means you're learning a really valuable lesson that's going to increase what you have to offer in the world.
Yeah, in the middle sucks. So if you're in the middle of something and it sucks, that means you're actually on track, because the middle sucks. The middle of how you thinking, why did I do this? Right?
The middle sucks. That I feel like that's the headline so far of this episode. Middle sucks. Dr. Marquel Russell, the middle sucks. And so, so I want to share with you a theory that I have that I think ties into all this, and it sort of shapes my approach with younger people. So there's a famous psychologist, which, by the way, saying there's a famous psychologist means if you're not a psychologist, you still probably haven't heard of him, unless it's Sigmund Freud or something, right? But his name was Eric Erikson, and he has this theory called the stages of psychosocial development. And it basically says that, like, at these different phases of our life, we have these different conflicts that we're trying to work through. And if we properly resolve the conflict, then it kind of unlocks the next phase of life. And if we don't, then we end up stuck. And this is where you get, 55-year-olds that act like 14-year-olds because they just got stuck in a phase, because they didn't properly resolve the conflict. So the conflict, the first half of adulthood, or maybe about the first third of adulthood, roughly what they say from 18 to 40, is a conflict called intimacy versus isolation. And it's essentially, am I going to be known by other people, or am I going to remain disconnected from other people and thus isolated? And if I know, like, I do a lot of coaching. I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and just humans trying to level up. And if you do this analysis of people over 40, it's very common. I'm curious if you've seen this, that if you look at, like, what are the actions that I took in my first 10 to 20 years of adulthood, it was really about building that network and building those connections and trying to get myself out there to be known as much as possible. But the flip side of that is often we're not that discerning about what it is that we're known for. We just want to be known by a lot of people. And then at 40, roughly, I mean, it's not a perfect science. It's not like, a switch flips in the brain, but roughly around 40, we go into a new phase that, assuming we built enough of a connection to the world and we feel like, okay, the world knows who I am. Now we get a lot more concerned about what it is that we're known for. And we go into a period where the conflict is called generativity versus stagnation. And essentially it's like, am I generating something productive and meaningful for the world and for myself, in other words, in alignment with what I value, or am I stagnating? And that switch happens roughly around 40. And so what I try to help young people do is say, look, don't wait until you're 40 to start caring about productivity and value creation and the meaning and relevance of what it is that you're doing in the world to be known. Don't wait until you're 40. If you can pull that into the work you're doing in your 20s and 30s, where it's not just about getting yourself out there, but it's becoming, because if you think about it, who is it that you're trying to be known by when you're younger? You're typically trying to find older, more successful, more respectable, more like mentor types, because if you can get known by them, they'll open the doors for you. They have the keys to the kingdom, right? But what is it that they value? They don't value the guy who's going to hustle and grind and leave his family behind and get drunk and party on the weekends because you're trying to be known in another part of your life by as many women as possible if you're a man, or vice versa. Like, they don't value indiscriminate knowingness. They value people who have values. So pull that into your younger years and watch how much faster you go. So anyway, that's my whole theory. And I'm curious now, in the context of your life experience, coming up on that threshold between the first phase and the second, if that lands with you in anything you've experienced.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. I'm actually gonna I took some notes actually. I'm actually gonna dig into this guy Eric Erickson, but I think that's spot on. Like every area, like as you said. So I didn't that I can recall. I didn't hear the word mentor used until I was about 25.
Okay.
Right. So that wasn't a term that I heard growing up. So I do a lot of work with the youth as well. I've youth entrepreneurship, speaking in schools, the whole nine. And that's one of the biggest things is value creation. You nailed it. So like typically when I speak to the youth, I'm like, hey, because they want to make money. They're aspirational. They want to make money. That's the thing, right? So I'm like, all right, how do you make money? And the first thing they say is work hard, get a job, that type of thing. And I'm like, none of those things are technically wrong. However, the way you make money is by creating value. You find a problem to solve the problem. It doesn't matter how hard you work to solve the problem. The solving of the problem is what makes you money. So talking about being intentional about that, being intentional about what you're doing with your time and valuing your time, all those specific things well, first of all, realizing that you're already a person of value, not you got to do anything to become a person of value, but realizing your inherent value that you already have and then tapping into that value, unlocking your potential, right? Like early on, like the sooner you can begin to figure out the combination, so to speak, to unlock that potential, the sooner you open up your whole life to a variety of things. You know what I'm saying? So it's like what I'm discovering now at 40 or even in my 30s. And I heard about personal development when I was 27 and 28, when I got involved in network marketing, right? And it was just mind blowing to me. And I was like, man, I wonder how my life would have been, not regrets or anything, but just out of curiosity, it's a thought experiment. I wonder how my life would have been at 15 or 16, understanding personal development, self-growth, and, and that type of stuff. It'd have been a total game changer. So really honing in on what you're breaking down, like that series of things, I think that's 100% spot on.
Yeah, and I think a lot. It's like I was the same way in my 20s and 30s. Well, when I was younger, I wanted to be a musician, but skipping that, I reached a point where it was like being poor sucks.
Yeah, for sure.
Being broke sucks. If the middle sucks, and being broke sucks, right?
Yeah,
because a lot of times too, you're broke in the middle. But anyway,
for sure.
And then after that, it was like, man, I want to make some money. But if I really think about why I wanted to make money when I was younger, it was for this, it was to be relevant. It was like, if I have money, I won't get walked on. If I have money, I'll be able to do what I want to do. If I have money, I'll be able to meet who I want to meet and have respect from that person or have relevance. It really was, I want money because it's my ability to get myself out in the world and be known. It really was the why behind the money was congruent with that phase of life of intimacy versus isolation, that I'll feel more connected in a world. The world will accept me because I have money. If I think about now why I want money, I want it because there's all this screwed up stuff in the world and I want to go have a positive impact and make it better.
Yeah.
And I need money to do that. So the reason, even though money is still a primary driver, reasoning is totally different. And that's what I'm trying to help the younger people understand. It's not to demonize wanting money. It's the more you can make it about something other than just you wanting to feel like a big shot.
Yeah.
The more money, ironically, the more money you'll actually make.
It's very true.
So, okay, let's talk about you then. You talked about being 15 years old. What would life have been like if you'd had personal development in your life at 15 years old? Tell me what you did have in your life at 15 years old.
So at 15 years old, I actually so in 10th I want to say I was about 16, 17. So I dropped out of high school in 10th grade, right? So the people, speaking of money and wanting to make money and desire for money, the only people who I knew who had money when I was young growing up were drug dealers. So that was the path I chose, like early on, selling drugs, because I was like, we had desires of going to the NBA and things of that nature, but that was far off, right? And then the adults around you, so I would say, well, that's a great, but make sure you have a plan B, make sure you have something to fall back on. So the thing that I had that was close to me was selling drugs, right? And those are
So to be clear, plan A was hoop dreams, plan B was drug dealing.
Exactly, 100%. So I went that path. 10th grade, I was already driving to school, smoking weed, making money, all that type of stuff. And I was in algebra 2, and I always wanted to be a millionaire. But I was like, I don't see how algebra 2 is going to get me there. And I didn't school. I always did great at school when I was interested, but I got bored. And I was like, I just don't see how this connected. So I ended up dropping out of school, went full time in the streets. So I'm in 10th grade. So I had to be 16, right? 16-ish, somewhere around there. And then, yeah, so to answer your question, just to stay on track, to answer your question, 15 to 16, that's what I had in my life, like the streets, drugs, everything that comes with that.
So I guess you had an early lesson in the context of client attraction that
Absolutely.
having a really, really desirable product is actually a pretty good way to attract customers.
100%.
Which, let's be honest, most marketers today, most people doing business on the internet could learn a thing or two from a drug dealer, which
Absolutely.
is if you have the right product, you don't have to do all this crazy, nonsensical, scammy marketing shenanigans. Just have a better product. Now, ideally, you have a high quality product that produces a great customer experience and does something net positive in the world, which you cannot say that about drugs. But at the end of the day, drug dealers attract customers because they have a great product.
Yeah.
By the way, if they cut their product or degrade their product, they lose customers.
Exactly.
I think there's a lot of marketers in the world that need to learn that from the drug dealers, like actually care about having a great product.
I agree 100%.
Okay, so obviously you didn't stay in that lane. Good on you. What happened? What shifted? When did things?
So when I was 19, I actually had my first son, and I was actually locked up when he was born. And the first time I met him was in visitation. Like his mom brought him to see me. I saw him in visitation. Good thing. The silver lining was I was actually in a work release program, so I could actually touch him and hug him and all that type of stuff. So at that point, I was like, all right, when I get out, I want to be present in my son's life, like, because my dad wasn't around when I was growing up. So I said, okay, I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna do the job thing. So I got out and tried to do the job thing. It was very short lived. I defaulted back to my previous programming where my skill sets lie, right? So I went back into the street.
How much of that is because of what I imagine is, I've never been incarcerated, other than just a bad night, but
Yeah.
there's obviously a cliche around when you get out of jail or incarceration, or anything with a felony, like employment is real, like getting a job and doing a job and just building a life becomes very difficult. Was that true for you?
Yeah, for me, it was more so, I'm such a math guy, right? So I had a job changing oil. A buddy of mine got me a job changing oil and tires at a truck stop, right? And so I was working there, and I was looking at the price list one day, and I got paid $8 an hour, but I saw that every hour they made about $300, $400 on the work that I did. And I was like, man, where I'm from, that's pimping. I'm like, I could find $8. This is me rationalizing the whole thing, right? So I'm like, I could find $8 an hour at home in the couch. You're right. I could figure something else at the house. So I'm rationalizing and talking myself out of it. But the numbers didn't make sense to me. I was like, I could just be doing something better with my time. I'm covered in oil, things of that nature. So I kind of talked myself out of it. And I was like, and then I took my son to the fair, and based on the check that I had made at this job, we couldn't even really do the things that we wanted to do at the fair. And I was like, this ain't working for me. So I need to temporarily go back into what I know best to get myself to situate until I figure out a better way.
The curse of math.
Yeah.
I feel you, man. Like my whole life, the economic equation, I feel like life would be so much easier if I just didn't naturally do the math on things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I say it would be easier. It would be a lot, I'd have a lot less and a lot less fulfillment now, but I totally feel you on the curse of like doing the math.
Yeah.
Then you're like, what am I doing? I'm at the bottom of this equation. Okay. So anyways, all right, you default back, keep it going.
Yeah.
What happens?
I also love music. I heard you say you was a musician as well. I also love music. I never rapped or did beats or never wanted to be famous. However, the guys who I looked up to in the music industry, they came from similar worlds as me. So I was like, maybe I can start a record label. So I knew people who rapped, I knew people who did beats, and I was like, if I can bring them together, I can start a label. I always been a visionary. I always had some leadership potential. I always had drive.
And you're in Atlanta. This is Atlanta, so which has a very legit hip hop industry. Yeah.
100%, 100%. So I jumped into that and I started a label. And then I bought a studio. It was a hair salon and we stripped it out, turned it into a studio. And that led me to being in the club every night because, of course, that's where you break records in the club. So we used to be in the club so much, a buddy of mine introduced me to his cousin, and his cousin had just opened, who was managing a club here. And then the club scene is driven based on club promoters. So he asked me, he said, do you want to get a night as a club promoter? Like, you can have your own night, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I didn't know anything about the club promotion business, but I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So I did it. And I had Tuesday nights. We called it Get To It Tuesday because my label was called Get To It Enterprises. So I was like, okay, this would be a great way for me to promote my artists. And then we created a platform for other independent artists where they can actually come perform. They'll pay us $25. They can perform. And then whoever won, it was a competition, they would win $250. So while I was in the club one night, I was at a buddy of mine's mixtape release party. Somebody walks up to me. He thinks I'm somebody else. We know each other's face, but he think I'm my brother actually. So he pitches me on network marketing. He doesn't call it network marketing. He just says, hey, how many people you know got a cell phone? And I was like, well, everybody I know has a cell phone. And he was like, what if every time they paid their bill, you got paid? And I was like, that'd be pretty dope. And he was like, well, we're doing a meeting this week. Some of my mentors are going to be in the area. They're looking to expand in the area, the ground floor opportunity, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, opportunity to meet some legit millionaires. Like, I'm there.
Right.
So I went to this presentation, did my first in-home network marketing presentation, and they started breaking down this video phone technology and how it's going to change the world, et cetera, which video phone technology did change the world, right?
Was that Excel?
It was 5 links. So this was after, so this was later. So I think Excel blew up early, I think 90s, I think. So I did 5 links. So this was about 14, 15 years ago or so. So I jumped into a head. There was like 500 to get started. I'm like, I'm in. I paid for me, my brother to get in. I paid half for him to get in. And it was all you gotta do is get to it, and they'll get to it, and they'll get to it, and they'll get to it. And I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be crazy. Everybody I shared it to told me it was a pyramid scheme. It wasn't legit. My mom, God rest her soul, she was the one who said, she watched it. I sent her the video. She was like, because she's always been a hustler. And she was like, if you market yourself, it can work. So that was like my mustard seed of faith. So I started working, and then somebody who I ended up recruiting sent me a link one day, and it was a 4-part video series that basically said, here's how you build a network marketing business without home parties, without home meetings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that led me into online marketing / direct response marketing. And that took me on a path that totally changed the game for me.
Man. So, I've done, I don't know what episode this is, 340, 330, 350, somewhere in there. And this show started as basically a research project. So I'm going to interview as many outlier success stories as I can find, because I want to find what are the common threads and the common traits of people's journeys. And then if I let the audience listen, it's like, oh, let's hear hundreds of wildly successful people talk about what worked for them. And over time, we'll develop almost a philosophy of success based on aggregated wisdom. That was the premise of the show. And there's a few themes that have emerged now over several hundred episodes. One, being a musician, or early exposure to either the actual practice of becoming an instrumental or performing musician, or the music business. Mm-hmm. There's something so intrinsically entrepreneurial about music.
Build.
the creation of the art itself and the marketing and production of the art itself. So that's one thread that's emerged. I'm not at all surprised. You and I both share it. Another is, although I cannot claim to have a personal experience of this, but honestly, dealing drugs.
Yep.
I've talked to a lot of people. I mean, I've had people on the show that were like, one guy was like in prison in Europe for like 10 years, or he was supposed to be in prison for life, but he just, they got him out on a technicality and he went on to build an amazing business and whatever. But man, I mean, that you talk about learning how to tolerate risk, how to emotionally and neurologically self-regulate, how to conduct yourself in high pressure situations, all these entrepreneurial skills, right? That's another one. So I'm not at all advocating to the audience, oh, go find a gig dealing drugs, but go find a way to develop those abilities. Yep. Don't shy away from those types of opportunities to develop those skills. A third one is network marketing. So many people. Myself, I had early exposure to network marketing. You notice I threw out Excel. Like I have some awareness of that industry because I used to get pitched on all kinds of things. But those are three, well, certainly two of them at least, are not necessarily things that you stay in forever.
Yep.
But the skills, and that's what I hope people are hearing and learning from you, from me, from everybody that we have on this show, is like, the end of the day, the lid on your success is not where you're from, what color your skin is, who your parents were. It's your freaking skills. Yep. And if you don't like your life, what are you doing to develop the skills that would make a different life possible?
It's very true.
So you got the skill. I mean, you did all three. You had dealing drugs, you had the music business, and you had network marketing.
Yeah.
And network marketing often leads to direct response marketing because same thing for me. I don't want to be talking to my friends about this stuff, but I see especially for those of us that do the math, I see the business opportunity. So how can I take this online? And that leads you to direct response marketing. So anyway, please pick up the story from there.
Yeah. So from there, that led me into, I started buying everything I can get my hands on. Because that first purchase, it was a $40 ebook. I had never bought none online. I didn't even know people were making money online. So I was scrolling this. It was what I now know is a sales letter, and I read it multiple times. And I was like, man, I'm gonna go ahead and buy this thing. This guy has talking about he's made $25 million online. Blah blah blah.
What ebook? I'm curious. I'm sure you remember what the
it was called. Magnetic Sponsoring by Mike Dillard.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Mike's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. That was the third.
I bought that shit too.
Yeah, that was my first online purchase. Yeah. And when I bought it, it gave me another upsell because you know how now I'm in the funnel.
Oh yeah. Wait, let me see if I can remember the upsell sequence from the magnetic sponsoring funnel. There was it'll take too long. Remind me, but I'm like picturing myself going through the same funnel.
I forget exactly what it was. I think it was the vault. I forget exactly what it was. But the only thing was I was using a prepaid card because I didn't have a bank account or anything. So I still had my prepaid card from Walmart that I used to join the network marketing opportunity. So I had to go reload the card to get more money. So I got the car, I reloaded the car. I think I sent them an email like, hey, I want to buy that thing. I just had to get my card situated. So they was like, cool, I bought it. And then I was hooked, man. And of course, the online stuff. You're down. Now I'm down rabbit hole after the rabbit hole. Like if he mentioned somebody he learned from, now I'm going to Google that person. Now I'm in their funnel, and it's just a never ending thing. So I'm buying stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. So and I was learning that, trying to learn it because I was just consuming it, wasn't implementing anything because I'm thinking knowledge is power. The more knowledge I consume, but it's actually I found out quickly that's not the case. So yeah, I'm buying that. I'm trying to do the network marketing and stuff. And then I bought a course one time and it came with a coaching call with my guy, Adam Chandler. I got on the call with him.
I know Adam too, man. You're taking me down memory lane.
Adam? Yeah. That's my guy. That's my guy. So I got.
Tell him Jeff Lerner says hi. We probably haven't talked in, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, but
yeah, same here. I haven't talked to him in a minute. That may be a sign that I need to reach out to him. So he basically was like, hey man, just pick one thing, right? And just focus on one thing. Instead of trying to learn copywriting and social media and SEO and blah, 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 blah. So the thing I picked at that time was content creation. So I was just creating a piece of content every day, a video piece of content, just teaching what I was learning. And then people started reaching out to me, asking me to teach them. right? So then I started trying to learn this course. I saw people doing courses and upsells, so I tried to do that type of thing. And then people wanted me to just coach them on what I was doing. And then I found out that coaching was a business. And I'm like, because at first I'm like, coach you? Like, what does that mean? And I found that people would actually pay you for what you know. And I'm like, well, duh, Marquel, because you're buying people's stuff, people will buy yours. So I started charging people for coaching, started coaching some people. And I got that to 10,000 a month because that was the holy grail at the time. And I started increasing my prices and so forth. And then I focused in. I was like, man, the biggest thing that I'm seeing is people don't know how to generate leads. And I've really figured out how to generate leads. So I went in all in on that. And then I realized that, well, people don't really want leads, they want clients. So then we dug all in and like, okay, here's our specific client acquisition process on how we, grew our coaching company. So we went all in on that. And that became Client Attraction University, became an Inc. 5000, fast growing company. As we scaled that company, I started learning that client acquisition was just a small piece of it. Like nobody was teaching like finance. Nobody was teaching like I need to change my entity. Nobody was teaching like team and systems and structure and all that fun stuff, right? How to lead and all this good stuff. So I had to go out and start learning that stuff. And then I started realizing that, dang, we're helping people get to 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 plus per month. But we know that it's a cliff over there if they don't learn systems and processes and all these things of that nature. So I had to start learning that and implement it. And then that turned into a Strategic Scale Institute. So it's just been a fun ride of learning. And as I learn, and my gift is teaching. So I discovered that along this journey. It's like I'm great at taking seemingly complicated concepts and breaking them down systematically so that other people can actually implement it regardless of their skill level, regardless of what they know about it. So I was like, I've my whole journey has been around never the mountaintop type of guy, but I'm the guy who's like in the trenches. I'm learning stuff, implementing stuff, and I'm coming back like, hey, here's what I discovered. Here's what I found. Here's what you can implement. So that's literally been, my whole journey up until this point.
Well, and those are the guys I think that people want to be learning from. The guys, I have this real frustration in the world that like, we're so fixated with the big headline result. It's like I want to learn how to handle my money. I'm going to go Google Warren Buffett, hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
Look, there is nothing about Warren Buffett's financial life that is remotely relevant to most people's financial life.
So true.
He is not the guy. If you want to learn how to allocate, $100 billion effectively, by all means, go learn from Warren. But if you want to learn how to restructure your personal finances to create more cash flow and more opportunity and leverage that into maybe a 10-year plan to retire with passive income, Warren Buffett's not having that conversation. So why are you learning from him? Learn from the people, like you said, the people in the trenches that are doing that are a few steps ahead of where you're trying to go or where you are on the path you're trying to go down. Those are the people to learn from. So and the other thing that as you were talking, and I was like, man, this is so cool. So Adam Chandler, Mike Dillard, personal friends of mine. I got started in 2009 online in a program called Carbon Copy Pro. I don't know, maybe you saw it back.
I remember that. I was out there figuring this stuff out as well because I was in the frame. Like I did on MLSP.
Yeah, there was MLSP, the Finale brothers, also friends of mine.
And Norbert.
Norbert. Yeah,
that's my boot.
I actually so Brian and Jim, the Finale brothers. This is only interesting to us and like the audience.
Yeah.
Why are they talking about this? They actually had a band out of DC.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
And it is I still jam their LP at my at the gym sometimes. But anyway, I digress. Anyway, good guys. But they had MLSP actually was a spinoff from Carbon Copy Pro at the time.
Yeah.
I have a meeting later today, literally, with one of the founders of that platform, who now runs one of the biggest digital marketing agencies for info product businesses in the world. He's based out of Cayman Islands. And so the reason I'm saying all this is not so that we can geek out on our shared, network, but because think about what we're talking about. We're talking about 10, 15 years ago, small group of guys. By the way, Adam Chandler was in Carbon Copy Pro for a period of time. So like, that's how I knew those guys. Dillard, they licensed some of Dillard's training. But anyway, my point is you had this group of guys that 15 years ago were like, hey, there's this brave new world called digital marketing and the internet, and we're going to share what we've learned.
Yeah.
They shared with you, here you are 15 years later sharing what you've learned with the world, having built Client Attraction University. My journey, I've had, at one point I left all the online stuff. I went and started an agency to service like small businesses with the same digital lead generation and client acquisition strategies. And I built a digital marketing agency for 6 years. We serviced 11,000 businesses. Wow. Then I started Entre. You're doing, like, my point is learning something, applying what you learn, and then sharing what you're learning based on the application, not just the head knowledge. Look at the ripple effect.
Yeah.
Of what those guys did 15 years ago. You wouldn't be here without that. I wouldn't be here without that. So anybody that's out there thinking, well, does it really can little old me really make a difference if I learn some stuff and then I apply some stuff and then I teach some stuff?
Yeah.
Well, if it weren't for these guys doing that 15 years ago, you and I wouldn't be here. So the answer is a big fat yes. You can make a hell of ripple just by sharing what you're learning. Absolutely. It's really cool.
100%. 100%. 100%.
So anyway, I digress again, but I tend, that's the beauty of having your own show. You can digress as much as you want.
For sure.
So tell me more then about where that went and ultimately kind of bring us up to present. Real quick, I want to let you know about my text message community. So I use text messages to provide unique value to my podcast listeners. These texts can just be random thoughts. It can be letting you be the first to know about an event I'm planning or some free training that I'm planning to host for the community. Just shoot me a text to get subscribed to the list. The number is 702-996-3926. Again, that number is 702-996-3926. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, so we did that. So we Client Attraction University. And then we started. So more so recently, over the past year or two, over the past year, I've been really sitting at like, okay, what are all the things that I've learned, and what are the things that aren't being talked about? So like I came from the era of hustle, grind 24/7, sleep when you're dead, blah, 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 blah. Kind of came through that whole culture, so to speak. And now what I've realized more is that we don't technically build businesses to work. We actually build businesses to create freedom, right? But a lot of times we'll start businesses and we thought this business was created. We wanted this business to create freedom for us, but it actually becomes a prison, right? Where now we're strapped to our laptop all the time. We're always on. We can't sleep. We are anxious thoughts. And the more money you make, the more anxious you are. And you think you make more money, it alleviates that, but it doesn't. But I don't think that is talked about enough, right? So my whole thing now is around helping entrepreneurs build companies that can actually run without them, so they can actually experience the freedom that they actually signed up for. Because think about it, somebody will quit their job to actually, because they want more freedom, and on this job, they're actually working more on the job than they worked. Well, they're working more in the business than they worked on the job. They're making less in the business than they made on the job, and they're more stressed in the business than they were on the job, right? And it doesn't make sense. So it's like, okay, how do we build this? Everything get life. To me, what I found is that everything in life gets better when we get better with systems, right? So if we want to we'll create a better life and a better business, we got to create better systems in every area: personal life, business life, marketing, sales, finance, operations, the whole 9 yards. So now I'm just doubling down on how do we help businesses build something that can run on its own, right? And if they decide to sell the business at some point, they can actually build the business to sell. Or even if they don't want to sell it, if they build it to sell, they still just build a better business. So that's like my focus now, because the things that really matter are that a lot of times can go to the wayside if we're not careful, because we're so focused on the business. So we miss so many moments with the kids, with the wife, or with the husband, depending on if you're a lady, you're married or whatever, because we're locked in, and we'll tell ourselves that we're doing it for the family. When in reality, that's just a cop-out, just so we can stay locked in, and then all the things that matter just passes us by. So that's my focus now from a Strategic Scale Institute standpoint, is like helping business owners build companies that can actually run themselves, so we can, and that'll actually afford us the freedom that typically we sign up to this entrepreneurship thing for anyway.
I want to expand on what you just said, because my experience, sadly, and everybody's in a different place, but there are a lot of people where you basically say what you just said and they smile and they nod and they, yeah, that's true. But in their heart, they're saying, yeah, but I got to make this money. And once I make this money, then I can worry about all that.
Yep.
And we both know that's what's really going on in a lot of people. So I want to expand on what you just said and say, add to what Marquel just said, not instead of, but in addition to, that the money you want to make requires vision and clarity of what it is that you're doing in the world that's different and unique and valuable and exceptional, as opposed to just, oh, well, I'm copying what I learned from some guy online.
Yep.
Right. And this has been my experience. The vision and clarity piece requires time to think.
Mm-hmm.
And deep time, deep thought, time where you're not flooded emotionally and neurologically. You're not stressed. You're not running on adrenaline. You're not clicking refresh on your Facebook ads every 20 minutes to see if you got another conversion. Like you need extended time to think, and you cannot have that without what you're describing. The systems and processes that allow the business to run in a predictable fashion so that you can step away from not just physically, but emotionally, and actually have time to think and it's kind of the same thing of taking that latter phase of adulthood of what is it that I'm doing that's meaningful in the world and pulling it forward into the thing that you're trying to build. And I want to anchor it not just to time with family or these other things that we say matter more, but really in our hearts we act like they matter less. The money itself requires distance from the thing that's producing the money itself. At least the amount of money that you want requires that distance.
Expound on that, because I think that might go over a lot. Expound on that when you say the money itself requires the distance. Expound on that
a lot of times, this has been my experience. When people are working in the business, 14 hours a day, like you're talking about, they're on this hamster wheel of, man, I have less time and less money and more stress than I did back when I had the job, right? It's because you're so busy trying to implement all this stuff that you've learned that is very good stuff, but it's still stuff you've learned in the context of copying what somebody else did.
Yeah.
If I say to somebody, tell me what is one of a kind about your business. Tell me what makes it unlike anything else in the world. The amount of hemming and hawing and, well, we have this, like all the word drivel that comes after that, it says to me, this person has no idea why their business even matters. There's 31 million businesses in the United States. We only have 330 million people. So there's almost one business for every 10 people in the United States. The world doesn't need another business.
True.
In fact, the world would benefit probably if you would shut your business down because you're taking up space. And you can't even tell me why it's unique and important. Until you know what makes you one of a kind in the world, what makes your business as unique as you are, with its own DNA and its own gut biome and its own fingerprint and its own, again, as unique as you are, then I would argue your business is just taking up space that ought to belong to somebody who does have a unique business. But the time that it takes to figure that thing out requires not being stuck, stressed out in the business. Go have some unique life experience that gives you a unique perspective or a unique insight that you can bring into the business and say, this is what makes us different. I'll give you an example. For me, Entre, what makes us different is there's already a well-defined personal development industry. I didn't need to reinvent that. There's already a well-defined entrepreneurial education industry. I didn't need to reinvent that. But to say the biggest frustration I see in the world is that you have people doing personal development, but unless they actually learn to make more money, they're not really changing the options they have in their life. They're just getting better at dealing with them. And on the flip side, you have all these entrepreneurial educators out there that aren't actually speaking to the heart of what it takes to be successful as an entrepreneur, which is emotional and neurological self-regulation and changing some fundamental psychological attributes of self. And nobody's brought those two together in an unapologetic way. So that was like, now that's what I do. And ever since I got clear on that and started doing it, the business grows itself because people are like, this is cool, this is different. And they tell their friends. I still market, I still run ads, but I wake up and I have leads, new sales come in. I don't even know where they came from because it's just people telling each other. But that didn't, I've been doing, that took me a long time to get to where I had something that was actually unique enough that now with my value system looking back, I don't think that anything I did was even relevant or significant probably until about three or 4 years ago. But it took time. It took freedom. And so anyway, sorry, you got me going, but that's what I'm trying to say. And people are so addicted to the hustle, they forget to figure out why it even matters to anyone other than themselves.
Very true. Very
Sorry. You unlocked my rant.
Nah, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. I agree 100%.
So let me ask you the challenging question then. Why does Client Attraction University matter in a world where basically every niche is already spoken for?
So I would say, so Client Attraction University that's more so our,
Or not even that one, but your business interests as a whole. Why do they matter in that way?
because the biggest thing that I found from a frustration standpoint is there's a lot of people teaching how to make money, right? How to make money, start this business, start this business, start this business. But a lot of times they're teaching how to make money. They're not really teaching how to actually build a business, right? How do you build a team? How do you lead a team? How do you handle how do you actually build an asset of a business that can actually run without you? Because if it can't run without you, it's really not a business. It's really just a job. It might be a high-paying job, but it's like, how do you really build this thing infrastructurally? Because I couldn't find anything that was teaching it as we were growing, right?
Yeah.
So I think so it was a pain point for me. Like I was making $50,000, $60,000 a month, and I was still living out of my business account because I didn't know anything. I didn't have a CPA. I didn't know financial frameworks. I didn't know what a P&L was, right? Let alone how to read one. So really building something where not only it shows you how to make money or how to create an offer, but it's like, how do you actually turn this thing into an actual business with real systems, with real processes, with real individuals, with real payroll, and having a real thing where you can act without having to go, get an MBA or go to, some expensive, actual business university.
So just to kind of highlight what you're saying, which I love and I totally align with, what would have happened in that business if you tried to take 30 days off when you were making 50, 60 grand a month?
Yeah, it would have stopped. Everything would have went to a screeching halt.
Everything would have stopped. So you were stuck.
100%.
How many days could you take off before things started to go sideways, would you say?
You mean,
Or is it days or hours?
yeah, hours, right? So mentally, I wouldn't have been able to take off at all, right? Because I would have still been thinking about it. So even if you're physically away, but you're mentally still there, you're still not really away, right? So yeah, it would have hours maybe.
A related question. If you had said, screw it, I'm done. Maybe I've made 50, 60 grand a month for enough years that I bought some apartment complexes and I got rents coming in and I don't need this anymore. I want to walk away. How much would it have cost you to try to shut it down on a dime? Time and money. Because that's my experience of those things is like you build the mousetrap and then you get stuck in the mousetrap and then you can't step out of the mousetrap, not only because it won't work, but because then you got refunds, then you got chargebacks, then you got bad client reviews, then you got fulfillment problem. You have all because the businesses like that are usually based on getting paid now for obligations you have to deliver on later.
Exactly. And nobody is teaching that. So it's like you're like you said, you're stuck, and then you haven't even created the space like you spoke about to even think about like how do you take this active income and put it into some passive thing like real estate or apartment buildings. Like you haven't even created the space to even think or explore any of those other opportunities that exist.
And how much would somebody have paid you for that business?
Nothing.
So ironically, all you built was an income machine that fed off of you as the fuel source.
Yep. That's it. 100%.
I love it. And so now you're teaching people how to generate the income without having all of those other conditions.
100%. And literally learning how do we build, because like another thing that I've learned over the past couple of years or so that I'm very fascinated in is the private equity side of things, and right, how do we acquire companies and partner into companies? Because I've literally helped individuals generate billions, right? But it was, and I'm not mad about it, but it was just like upfront fee. But I didn't participate really in it on the upside. So it's so much other opportunity there where I could participate in the upside. And even I have team and infrastructure system that we can install in these businesses. However, it didn't work out because, again, just a lack of knowledge in that particular area. So now I'm learning more about that. So now I got different partnerships and relationships that are looking to buy companies all the time, but they lack deal flow of businesses to buy. So they're like, Marquel, as you help fix these businesses and their operations and their systems and so forth, we're always looking for businesses to buy. We just don't got enough businesses to buy. So now it becomes like a straight line path. Once we help them build a business the right way, we can make the proper introductions if that's something that they're looking to do. Or even if they don't want to sell and they just wanted to hire a CEO to actually step in and run a business, the business actually is built to actually do that. So it can exist without them.
Yeah, I love, this is a pathway, a progression for a lot of coaches and consultants is get good enough at what you do that you can get to the point where you can coach or consult for equity.
Yeah.
That's the real pot of gold in coaching and consulting. I'm sure you've whetted the audience's appetite now. So where do they go for more? How do they find you?
Yeah. So whatever your favorite social media platform is, connect with me there. It's just Marquel Russell, MarquelRussell. I also put together a page. If you go to scalemadeeasy.com, just scalemadeeasy, all spelled out.com. I got a ton of free resources over there for you at any level of business. Go over and check it out, scalemadeeasy.com. And yeah, let's connect.
That's incredible. We will we'll put all those links in the show notes. Dr. Russell, Marquel, I am really grateful. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. We align on so many things and we got some of the same friends. So thanks for being here.
Definitely. Thank you for having me.
And to all you viewers and listeners, as you know what I'm about to say, you are the best part of this show, even when Dr. Russell's here. So grateful we had this time together. Can't wait to catch you next time. Take care.
If you loved that episode, then you're definitely going to love this one. Check it out.
This is it. We're in a world now where it has never been easier to start a business on the one side, but at the same time, it has never been harder to stand out. People do not buy your products or your services, or even your ideas, as much as they buy your energy.